All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm not sure. I'll wait a few more minutes before I get started. All right. I'll wait a few more minutes before I get started. All right. I'll wait a few more minutes before I get started. All right. Let's start with this. For I'll wait a few more minutes before I get started. Why don't you, for everybody that's on, why don't you like just comment in and let me kind of know what you're most interested in, where you're struggling with, how I can best help you guys with this. And then, but I'll go through like the resume process. I'll go through kind of like nailing down how to figure out what roles you want to be in, how to network, things like that. But if there are like specific things that you are interested in, like, hey, please let me know. What's up, John? And if I pronounce anybody's name wrong, I like completely apologize. Looks like I got Karen or Saren on, Xiaoxin, Jane, of course, John. I will say, like for my career path, I taught for about 18 years, and then in last school year, so 2021 2022, October was when I decided like this is it for me, and I'm going to Shaoshan. Okay, gotcha. So in October, I decided that I was kind of burnout, a little tired of it, wanted to do something different. And the unfortunate part of it is, in education, in many, many, many states, there are a few that do have like a wide variety of like things that you can do, but almost all states, it's like you either teach, or you go into administration. And so, the like in Oklahoma in my 18th year, it was like my salary is like 46K, and I was just like, I can't afford to keep doing this, especially like to retire and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride. So October is like when I made my first post on LinkedIn, and it was pretty terrible. I went something like, "Hey, my name is Josh, and I think I want to be a corporate trainer. Are there any corporate trainers on this platform that will connect with me?" And like nobody responded, right? And then, um, a couple of weeks later, I made another post. I was like, I want to be a project manager. Are there any project managers on here that will connect with me and tell me how to get into project management? Because I didn't even know what project management was. It just, being in the classroom, I was like, oh, I have my kids do projects and I manage the kids. So therefore I would be a great project manager. But I mean, that stems from really not having an understanding of what the role actually looks like. And so, I got connected with a person, and Amir, and he introduced me to some other people, and like really helped out a lot to. Yes, it is, Julie. I think is it Darren McKee that wears his hat backwards all the time too. But anyway, so so it was a wild ride from because what I saw was you had a group of educators or like career pivoters that tended to be like, oh, I've applied at like 500 places, or I like nobody will interview me, and so there's and then you had other people that, like for example, like you have Julie that's present here, who was very systematic about how she went through things, and so she was one of the ones that were able to capture a new career, new job pretty quickly, pretty easily. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I was in so this so the start of this is really like, if the majority of your network are like transitioning teachers, then what you really want to do is you want to go and like be with those people that are where you want to be. You want to find the successful people, right? Um, so let's talk about. Okay, so let's talk.
Fire. Oh no.
Oh.
No. You just dropped the computer on the ground. That was hurt. You can't do that.
Come here.
Okay, so the very first thing, let's talk about. No, Julie is a rock star. For anybody that's on here, Julie Rader, you need to connect with her. She's gonna hate me after this. She's gonna have like 500 people like reaching out to her. But anyway, so let's talk about how do you even figure out like what it is that I want to do, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna present. I'm going to share my screen. And ignore all the tabs that are open. But the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to LinkedIn. And what you'll find is you'll start scrolling through here, and you'll start seeing people that have these job titles. So you have Mason, who by the way is awesome, and you'll see, oh, he's a B2B marketer. I wonder what B2B is. I wonder what marketing is. Let me scroll through here. Aunt Amelia, who's also amazing, GTM strategy and lead evangelist. Like, I wonder what that looks like. So just like scroll through here, and you'll start looking at these job titles. Customer experience. Start looking at these job titles that everybody has, right? And so, and once you like, as you do that, then let me find somebody I don't know. I'm probably like Julie, where it's going to be hard to find somebody that like I don't know at this point. But once you start seeing these job titles, then you want to. I'm just going to make something up here. So let's pretend I'm going to pick on customer success here. Pick on Julie. But so like let's say you got Fiona here, right? And she's a customer success manager, and you're like, I wonder what customer success looks like. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to request a coffee chat with somebody, and so I'm going to hit the connect button. I'm going to add a note, and you want to be pretty intentional about like what you're asking of people, because you don't want to be like, hey, tell me about customer success, because people are busy. So you want to say something like, and this is where like teachers should excel at, because we talk to people all day long, right? Hi, Fiona. Looking to pivot out of teaching. See, you're in customer success. Do you have a calendar I can book 15 minutes with to ask what your week looks like and what success in this role looks like. I appreciate your time. Have a great week, right? And then I'm going to send that over. And I'm going to do that for everybody that I find and you don't have to necessarily word it like that, but I always wanted to, when I was like reaching out to people, I always wanted to ask them, like, let me ask these two questions and like, let me keep it, because more times than not, what'll happen is they'll go, oh yeah, I got time to answer two questions. And so then you start, as you do that and you start connecting with people in customer success and marketing and project management and instructional design and recruiting and HR and all these different career paths, then, and they start answering these questions like, what does success look like? What does their week look like? You'll start to understand kind of what activities that they work on and what their, you can ask them what their work-life balance looks like and stuff, but you're going to start getting an understanding of what these different roles look like. And then you'll start, like, that'll help you narrow down to like 1 to 2 roles where you go like, you know what? I could do that every day. That sounds like really interesting. And then I'll pop over here and see if there's any more. Okay. And so after you have like done that, and so now you've kind of narrowed down like the fields that you are most interested in. And again, I'm gonna pick on customer success here. At that point, then I'm gonna go to customer success and I'm gonna find. And so if you do that, where you spend a couple weeks and you just connect with different people, most of them are going to say, yeah, here's my calendar. And you do that for a couple weeks, you like now have narrowed down. You're not saying stuff like, oh, I just want to work in ed tech, or I just want to work remote, because the ed tech is just, it's software. And so what they are doing is they're selling software that is an educational like space. And so all those roles in ed tech is not a role. It's an industry. It's a space. And so all those roles at ed tech companies are the same roles at, whether it's logistics or manufacturing, or like, it's so, ed tech itself is not a role. And so you can't just say like, oh, I just want to work in ed tech, because you're not saying like, what do you want to do? Where do you actually want to work? So let's say that you want to like go through here and you're like, okay, after I've talked to a bunch of customer success people and whatnot, customer success is where I want to be at. I'm just going to go here and start like stalking people that are in customer success. And I'm going to go to their profiles. I'm going to find the ones that I see that okay, so she posted a week ago. So she might be kind of active, right? So I'm going to, I think I've already done it, but there'll be an option for you to follow and hit that bell. And every time they post something, it will pop up. And then I'll do the same thing with Steve Lundy here. 3 weeks ago he posted, 1 week ago he posted. So yeah, so I'm just going to start connecting with all these people and that are in customer success. I'm going to see the things that they're talking about, and then as they make post, then I'm going to go, let's go pick on Julie here. Okay, because I like to pick on Julie. So I'm going to find, and so for instance, like you got Julie here, something comes across your feed and she starts posting here. Well, I'm going to find something I find interesting about her post, and I'm just going to comment, yes, and LinkedIn is an Instagram, but we could. So I'm just going to say something like, thank you for highlighting, who was it? Charles Miller. Letting people create great And so I'm just going to start interacting with these people. And then after I've interacted on a couple of Julie's posts, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect with Julie and I'm going to send her a voice message. The voice messages, and Julie will tell you this too, voice messages are super awesome. Or I'm just going to, and again, Julie. What was his name? Charles Miller? So I'm going to send Julie. I'm just, and again, so like your first strategy should just be connecting with people or following people in different industries and setting up coffee chats to like ask them those questions. And then once you have really framed in what industries that you want to be in, then you're going to go and connect with a ton of people and follow a ton of people in those industries. You're going to like interact. And so like this can be done 30 minutes to an hour a day. See. So, yeah. So to recap, because I can get kind of long-winded, Aaron. By the way, Aaron's here in the comments. Aaron is another fantastic person. When I was really, she's very strategic about resume writing. So she's like, she has a really great template that you can follow and things like that. So, yeah. So we've gone through, we have done coffee chats with a bunch of people. And I would say, like, if you just stick with those two questions, hey, what does your week look like? What does success look like? Or what does your week look like? Or what would be the biggest challenge I would face coming into this new role? Something like that. And so what you've done is you have narrowed down to like 1 to 2. I know everybody's like one industry. I think you're okay if you don't do more than 2, and if those industries are fairly similar. But it is, I will say, it is much easier just to focus on one, because here's the thing, like once you get into a company, like, and let's say you're focusing on marketing, or you're focusing on like product, or whatever that role may be. Once you get into that company, very often you can shadow other departments after you've spent a little time in that and get to like understand, and then what different roles look like at the company. And you'll have those opportunities to shadow and to like get your foot in the door. So really our biggest thing here, let me get my foot in the door, because sometimes you will get in there. I mean, much like teaching, you like, we were like, oh, we want to be teachers. And then at some point realize like, okay, this isn't what I want to do anymore. And so, and other industries and roles are just like that. And so, yeah, so step one is just figure out what you want to do. Because if you're coming on LinkedIn and you're posting like, nobody will give me an opportunity, or I've applied to 500 places, like, it just comes off as, and I hate to say this, but it comes off as desperation. You're like, I'd just take anything. And so you're not really showing why you will provide value to that person. And then the other thing that we run into is like, there are so many educators that are trying to focus on ed tech, and not only just ed tech, but like the top 5, like everybody, like Amplify, Elevate, K-12, what else? Pearson. So like so like there's this like, oh, they don't hire teachers, but that's not true. It's just that you and 5,000 other teachers are also applying to the same places and the same positions, and sometimes all positions that are open. You're just applying to everything. So yeah. So step one, go and connect with people. Like every time you see a new job title, ask for that coffee chat. Be very mindful about like the 1 to 2 questions that you want to ask, just to get them to chat with you. And then once you've figured out that one, maybe 2 roles, you're going to go and you're going to follow everybody that and connect with, follow all those people that are in those roles. And as their posts pop up, you're going to make a comment, and it's not going to be like, oh, great post. You're going to find something about that post that you really, really liked. And then once you have made a few comments on their post, then you're going to actually reach out to them and give them a compliment. Compliments, people love compliments. Hey, been following you for a while. Love your post today when you said A, B, and C. Okay. So now you're making connections in the fields that you want to be in. And this is very important because you're going to see the things that they're talking about that are like related to that field. And so you're going to see the languages that they use. And on top of that, let's say you want to be in customer success. What is better? Is it better to have 500 connections in customer success people, or is it better to have 500 transitioning teachers? Because one group is where you want to be. So go to the places where the people are at that you want to be. Okay. So once you've figured that out and you've made all those connections, then what you're going to start to do is we need to fix your resume. And the other thing that I would definitely advocate for is find podcasts that are in the fields that you want to be in, because now you're going to want to start making content on LinkedIn. And so if you're listening to like customer success podcast, then you can start making posts about, man, I heard this I was listening to the Gain Grow Retain podcast last night, and so said blah blah blah. What do you guys think about? And so now as you're interacting with those people, they will start interacting with you. I guess hold on one second. I got to shoot off a text message to my daughter. Okay. So, let's look at, okay. So next thing we need to worry about is, our resume, right? Which, I would say go to Erin Luber, and she has a great template that you can use, and get that template. It will be like awesome to help you out. So now that we have made connections, now that we know where we want to be, now that we are starting to create content, now we want to really start working on our resume. And so now I need to take like teacher activities and frame them into a way that shows, okay. So again, I'm just going to use customer success as the one I'm most familiar with. And so what you want to start doing is you want to start scanning all of the stuff in here. Okay. And so, so you want to find these words that are pretty common for most of them. And like off the top of my head, I know that you're going to see a lot of stuff like multi-channel communication. You're going to see a lot of ROI, probably churn, onboarding, adoption. So here's like another thing is, if you don't understand like what these words mean, because you'll want to use them in interviews, like ROI, revenue opportunities, onboarding, you want to go Google these, like, and it'll help, like if you're listening to these podcasts and listening to what people are talking about, because you can ask these questions. But I want to start using these words in my resume. So for example, all customer success managers will typically, like, you'll have this like onboarding thing going on. And so how can I use the word onboarding in my resume? Well, what does onboarding mean? It means like basically to like train. And so I can say something in my resume, like I onboarded, and I think all teachers, you show students how to use certain software, whether it's Canvas, IXL, NoReady. That just depends on what, what area you're teaching in. And so, I'm going to say something like, okay, I onboarded 167 students in, and I'm going to list a couple pieces of software, and then I'm going to say what the result of that was. And that was, onboarded 167 students with No Red Ink and Canvas to increase summative scores by 67%, right? And so now you're showing like that impact that you're having. And so you're not saying I taught English to 167 students. Let's see if there's, let me go to my resume. And Aaron helped me with my resume. Who is somebody that I sent my resume over to? I'm not a fan of this MacBook necessarily. Okay. So pulling up, by the way, my summary is way too long, and I need to tweak it. But here we want boring resumes. I hate to say it, but look, your name, phone number, email address, your LinkedIn profile, and then start talking about who you are, what you've done. So I am, like in this, and then we come down here to like the experiences, right? And so right here, I talk about I achieved a 20% increase in student grades by leading team inquiry meetings and discussing data-driven analysis of student success. Analyzed data to identify learning outcomes and evaluated learning with formative summative assessments to increase scores 100% of learners per year. Talking about building partnerships. And so onboarded, trained, and nurtured over 3. Nurtured is another one that you're going to see. Led 20. So, these are our metrics. Created 200 plus 24. These are our numbers that we're going to use, because we're going to show what we did, how we did it, and kind of what the outcome was. And see, I'm using stuff like key performance indicators. In my resume, which is, they'll talk about ROI, KPIs. So you want to start using like these terms, the corporate resume. You want to start using these terms in your resume. Okay. So what other questions do we have? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. So is it worth it to get a LinkedIn Premium? I had LinkedIn Premium for quite a while, mainly so I could see who was like looking at my my profile. And I don't have it anymore. And honestly, I haven't seen really any difference between having like for functionality or benefit. I really haven't seen a difference between having the premium and not having the premium. So is it worth it? It's cheap. So, and I think you can get like your first 30 days free. I may be completely wrong on that, but I mean, it would be, I guess, worth checking out if you think it would be beneficial to you or not. Okay. What else can I talk about here? So we talked about, then what I would definitely do is once you have made some like connections and once you have really gotten to know people, then what you want to do, and you really want to like, you want to start approaching people that are, and when I like connected with people, aside from just connecting with like, like let me like somebody like Julie, for example, who's just but she's a CSM. But I also want to connect with people that are in like supervisor like status, like that management role. Because then what I want to do is I want to say, you know, I'm going to reach out to like somebody like Erin or Jasmine or somebody like that. I'm going to say, hey, can you do a mock interview with me? And most of the time they'll say, yeah, I'll do a mock interview with you. So you really want to get coached on how to interview for the roles that you want to be in. And Anna Murphy, I spent a ton of time with Anna Murphy doing mock interviews. She absolutely loves doing mock interviews. So, but yeah, you sit down and do a lot of mock interviews, because once you have done quite a few mock interviews, and I did something like, I don't know, a dozen and a half mock interviews. When I actually went to interview, like, no, like I was not stressed out at all. And so, you know, there's a huge difference between like not knowing what to expect, what kind of questions they're going to ask you, you know, what kind of answers are best framed in those questions. Because when you have that down and you walk in there and they start asking those questions, like you're just relaxed and you're smiling and you're storytelling. And so, yeah, and you're showing how like you can like bring that value to the role. You're also, you know, you're able to use the terminology to show you understand that role. And that's very, very important coming into a brand new role, is that you at least understand it. And you can compare things that you have done in the classroom to similar activities that you'll be doing in the new job. Let's see. What else? Yeah. So, and then when it's time for you to start applying for jobs, one of the things that I recommend, and this is the reason why you want to have a lot of connections, is you can start looking at the places that your connections work at, and you can see if they have openings, and then you can go to your connections and say, hey, would you mind introducing me to the hiring manager, or would you mind taking my resume to, you know, I'm going to apply, would you mind putting in a good word for me, or would you mind taking my resume to somebody? And that is just tremendously more helpful, because everywhere that I applied for, I had either somebody that did like an internal referral for me or advocated for me, such as taking my resume to the hiring manager and saying, hey, like Josh is like applying here and you really need to talk to him. He's like a great person. And I also had, like, for example, when I interviewed with Ronan, he, you know, he was honest. He said, man, I, you know, would love to have you on the team, but I kind of need somebody with more experience that isn't going to need a lot of coaching. And, but he started introducing me to people that were hiring and putting me like directly with them. And so they become advocates for you and can get your foot in the door at other places. And so that's like tremendously important. Another thing that I think is very important to stand out, that I did with great success, was after I would, you know, hunt down whoever it was that is going to be like the hiring manager. And because often on, like, you can, like, if you go, you can find out on like the job ads on LinkedIn, like who posted it and stuff like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 60-second video and introduce myself, give a very small, like, hey, my name is Josh. I have been in education for 18 years. I am looking to transition into this role. I've applied, and like 3 reasons why I'd be like great at this opportunity is because I'm going to give those 3 reasons. Thank you. And I'm going to send that video off. And like, people really like that. It's different. Send voice messages to people all the time on LinkedIn. And I know Julie had great, Julie loves voice messages, by the way, if you want to voice message somebody. Imposter syndrome, you know, I don't, I don't know if I ever really suffered from imposter syndrome, honestly, and I don't, and I won't say like you shouldn't feel imposter syndrome, but I think if you have done a ton of work to prepare yourself for your pivot out, then then you're not going to really have that imposter syndrome because you are applying to things that you feel like you're going to be successful in. And so I like, to me, that's the most important mindset is like, I'm going to be successful in this and I'm going to work really, really hard. And I'm going to be, the other thing is when you're applying as far as like having that, not knowing how to do the job properly is because the question here is, I'm afraid I'll have imposter syndrome at a new job and I won't know how to do my new job properly. Most places will have like a 30, 60, 90 day. Like you'll have your onboarding process. You'll start out really slow with your manager. They'll go over things with you, the processes they want you to go through. You'll learn about the company and culture. So typically like your first 30 days is just you're learning about the relevant technology. You're learning about the company. You're learning about the metrics that you should start learning to meet. You'll get those resources. So I would, one thing to think about is how much coaching do you think that you're going to need? And so when you're looking at applying to jobs, the places will typically fall into kind of one of three areas: your startup, your kind of your like middle like growth area, and then like enterprise. And so if you go to and so like on the enterprise sides, the companies that are really, really big, you'll have a lot of training. It'll be more of a slow onboarding process. And but and as long as you kind of keep, well, I hate to say this, but like keep your head down, but you'll be more in a very specific area, as opposed to if you're somebody that wants to work on a lot of different things, you might have to pivot sometimes. You are okay with not having a lot of like coaching. Sometimes startups are good, and you will be doing a ton of different things. In the middle of it, they may go, "Oh, we're doing something brand new." And so you will have a lot of responsibility to kind of like be proactive in your own like learning through the process. So if you are somebody that you're afraid that like you need a lot of, and I don't mean hand holding as in like a negative thing, but you want somebody that's going to be with you for a very long process to like train and manage and coach you, then the larger companies typically might where you want to focus on applying at. What else? Okay, so trying to think of everything I've covered. So we've covered how to start figuring out what fields you want to be in by um, just connecting with people that are in roles that you've never heard of. And I think this is important because I know like when I very first started my journey, first I was like, oh, I want to be a corporate trainer because that sounds great. And then I was like, well, I want to be a project manager. And oh, I want to go into instructional design. And so it just becomes very, very important because we, as educators, we tend to be more insulated to like, we're not aware of career paths. Like I don't like in high school and college and like I had never run into anybody that was like in marketing or HR or recruiting or customer success or like product management, like never run into these like career fields before. And so when I got on LinkedIn, all of a sudden it was like this whole new world, out there. And so I didn't want to. The other thing is, I think it's important to figure out like what you think whether you want to put it as like I won't be unhappy doing or something I really, really want to do. Is you don't want to jump from one situation that you're unhappy, like I'm unhappy in teaching, and then because I have seen this happen, people jump into other roles without really understanding it, and they are like miserable again. And so like there's no point in leaving one spot that you're unhappy with and going to another spot that you are unhappy with. So we have connected with all these different people and different roles to narrow down what we want to do. And now, once we figure out what we kind of want to do, now we are connecting um, with people in those roles. And all this can be done in like 45 minutes to an hour a day on LinkedIn. So, like, you can do it while you're watching TV in the evening. I know it sounds like a lot, but let me just say this: it's much more exhausting to try and reframe your resume all the time and apply to dozens and hundreds, and some, like, I saw somebody that posted they had applied to like almost like 1,000 places, and that's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time. So rather than doing that, spend that time that you would just be spamming all these applications out to connect with like 5 people a day. And if you think about it, 5 a day doesn't seem like much, but after a week, you have 35 new connections. After a month, you have like 150 new connections and people that you're interacting with. You're learning about it, the careers that you want to be in. So that's why it's so important. And also you have those connections. Then they're helping you, like, you're understanding the role, so you can understand how to use the terminology in the job ads to translate onto your resume. And then you're mock interviewing with people to get ready to interview. So at the end of this, at the end of like a month or two, what you've done is you have a very strong network. You have increased your knowledge, and like I said, yeah, and make sure, like, on your ride to work, listen to a podcast. On your ride home, listen to a podcast. While you're doing the dishes, listen to a podcast that are in the industries that you want to be in. So you're like listening to what people are talking about, and that's how you can start creating content. You can also piggyback off, like, what other people are saying and say, oh, I saw, and I've done this before. I saw in a post the other day, Julie Rader got me thinking about blah, blah, blah. And I think that, and you're tagging people and, like, creating content. And it's really good if hiring managers are looking at, and your content is, and think about this, because the hiring managers, the recruiters and stuff are like looking at what you're saying. And so you can either be the person that is on LinkedIn talking about, nobody will give me an opportunity. I've applied to all these places. I want to work remote. I want to work in ed tech. And like, you're just all over the place. Or you're in there talking about like issues in customer success or issues in project management and processes and things like that. And so you're talking about the field. And it's going to be a huge difference in the way you are like received. People are watching what you're saying. And so the other thing is, what I really advise is, and I've seen this so many times, where don't get on there and start talking about how you shouldn't have to take entry level positions, because like I'm in an entry level position, and like it pays a lot more than what I was making teaching. and there are other little things, like I don't have to drive, so I'm saving money on gas. The insurance through the company is very inexpensive, and it's very good. And it allowed my wife was spending almost like 900 and like $1 a month on insurance for herself and the kids. So we were able to save like $700 a month just off like changing insurance. And it's usually like 12 to 18 months later, you can be like getting promotions, other opportunities at other places. You can look at, other areas where you work at. And so, yeah. What else? Do we have any other questions? Well, what else can I cover on Mason? Mason would say start a podcast. I started a podcast. Yeah, so start a podcast. Okay, so I don't really want to ramble on if we don't have any other questions. I tried to make sure I kind of covered everything that is applicable to you're welcome, Jane. Yeah, the more you go through the process, the more questions will come up, and I can honestly say, like like there are so many educators that are pivoting out there just like in a state of like desperation. They're miserable, they're unhappy, they just are like I I will do anything to get out of here. And it creates this almost sense of like urgency. Um and they start turning, and the other thing is coming from like education, it's not unusual if a school district is hiring, like you apply for it and then a couple days later you've got a call, come in for an interview, and then either before you leave or the next day or two, like you've got the job. And so coming from like that education background, you have to realize that out of education it's completely different. It moves much slower. And so yeah, so rather than, I always say like to educators, like just take a deep breath. And like when I started my pivot, it was pretty bad, like October again. The posts I was making were just like, hey, can somebody help me? And and then so but yeah, so my plan, I had basically had like a 6-month plan, and so I had a ton of fun with it. My story is a little crazy, everything I did, from taking internships to creating like podcasts to um, doing informational interviews and things like that. So have fun with it because you're learning something new. Have fun with it. How long should cover letters or letters of intent be? Okay, so here's the bittersweet news about cover letters. Um, most, not all, but most hiring managers and recruiters don't even read the cover letters. So um, I would say a cover letter, 2 paragraphs, and I have a pretty standard cover letter that I use, that because if you were applying, and here's the other benefit of just like focusing on 1 to 2 like roles out there, is you're not having to like constantly change your resume and your cover letter. I typically included cover letters just to have it in there. But the vast majority of they did not like read it. Did you send your short video with your resume? I did. So what I would typically do is okay, I'll like this. Okay. So when I knew that I was going to apply at Drift, Jack was one of my connections I had. And so I said, Jack, will you run my resume over to the hiring manager or whoever's like responsible for this? And he was like, yeah. So I sent my resume to him and I said, by the way, who is the hiring manager for this? Who am I going to be interviewing with? And he was like, well, this is the person that you're going to be interviewing with. And so yeah, I did. In addition to obviously applying on the company website. And there's also, you can typically, let me see if we can pull this up. Typically, you can, oh, I don't want to be on Facebook again. Go to LinkedIn. So go to customer success, go to jobs, or whatever you are applying for. many times, of course, this is going to be one that they're not, but many times it will say who is okay, like right here. Amanda is like the one that posted this. So she is the one that, so I would go to Amanda, Kita Box, and um, when I went to connect and add a note, I would say, "Hi, Amanda. I have applied for the role that you've posted, and wanted to send a short video about why it'd be a great opportunity, and then copy and paste the link into the box there." Um, And if you do that, you don't necessarily have to send over your resume to them, but that's one way. The other option is like if you are applying somewhere, like let's say, I don't know, let's go to uh, Instructure, okay? Because Instructure has like Canvas, Mastery Connect, and a couple other products. But like I have 6 connections that work at Instructure, so um, if I see this one has 16, so we'll see all jobs here. If I find something I think that I'm qualified for, then I'm going to go to my connections that work here. Good old Carissa, Dominic, and then I'm going to reach out to Dominic and say, "Hey, Dominic, would you, you know, run my resume over to this person, and who should I reach out to?" So that's a couple of different ways. I could send him my video directly, and then he could forward it over. He could also, um, you can also typically go and find their find their email also, to send it directly to the people. So stop sharing. Okay. So yeah, and I really like, I've never had anybody tell me like, "Oh, this, like, don't send me a video, it sucks." Like everybody, like I've always gotten compliments on from the video, because you're able to show like your energy, like big smile, and you have a lot of like your personality, and so that has like a huge impact um on on like kind of like leapfrogging. So I would say definitely like you like 2 advantages to this is, one, you're standing out from the other 100 applicants that are on there. And also, you know, um, especially if you're applying to places where people work, they can vouch for you, which is always helpful. Um, and kind of the last thing I'll say on this is, for educators, don't pigeonhole yourself into ed tech, because we think, oh, I want to do ed tech because it's, you're not typically going to be talking to teachers. You're going to be talking to like superintendents and technology purchasing personnel and things like that. So um and we think that, oh, I want to do ed tech because I'm familiar with, but here's the thing is like every year, every few years, we get a new piece of software that we have to learn. And so it's like that at like all jobs. Like you're like, oh, I don't want to because I'll have to learn something. Well, like it's going to be like that no matter where you go. So don't pit nothing wrong with ed tech, but if you do want to focus on ed tech, there are 1,000 ed tech companies out there. And so the problem is most educators are like, oh, I'm like, they're all applying it like Amplifier or No Ready, Amplify or No Ready or IXL or something like that. So look at the other ed tech companies that are out there. But all right. Well, I think we're at 55 minutes now. So I'll give just a few seconds here if anybody has any last questions before I jump off. And also, this is recorded, so um, yeah. if anybody wants a copy of it, then let me know and I'll shoot it over and you can like rewatch it a couple times. And more than happy if anybody needs help with anything, um, then reach out to me, let me know. Be happy to help you as much as I can. Um, yeah, covered the cover letters. Yeah, cover letters, like I said, 2 paragraphs. They probably won't get read anyway, sadly. So cover letters, just like 2 paragraphs at most. Um, but anyway, okay. Well, I appreciate everybody. Hope you guys learned something, and you guys have a great weekend.